Welcome back to day 8 of the Sociology Guide 2022 challenge. This week we're looking at theory and methods. For those who are new to the challenge, what we do is every day I set 20 marks of revision questions. For theory and methods, it's 2 10-mark outline and explain questions. And then at the end of the day, I answer them either in a short video like this, or you can go to my website, thesociologyguide.com, and you can download the print version of my answers. Let's look at the questions that we'd set for today, day 8. Day 8 of 55, just another 47 days to go. First of all, it was outline and explain 2 reasons interpretivist methods are better suited to studying society today. Now, this is a tricky question because it's asking not only about interpretivist methods, but their usefulness in studying them in society today. So you're looking at aspects of society as well as interpretivist methodology and why it's more useful than, say, for example, positivist methodology. Second question, a little bit more straightforward. Outline and explain 2 ways sociology can be seen to be scientific. Sociology as a science is one of those debates that always comes up and always kind of worries students a little bit. There are quite clear sides to it though. I'm going to present to you today the positivist side and the realist explanation of how sociology can be seen as scientific. On the other side, you've got some more theoretical views. So interpretivist view, you look at the views of sort of like science being a closed belief system, and therefore you can't, the Kuhn and paradigm shifts, and how sort of like sociology shouldn't really want to be a science in that sense because it's rejecting new knowledge. And you look at those 2 different sides of the debate and you would evaluate it. For a 10-mark question, it'll probably ask you 2 ways sociology can be seen to be scientific or cannot be seen to be scientific. So we're going to flip it round to the side where it talks about sort of like it being scientific. But let's look at the responses for today. First of all, this was the interpretivist methods are better suited to studying society today question. Now, these 2 answers are quite similar, but you'll see that sort of like I've developed them in different ways. One reason interpretivist methods are better suited to studying society today is due to the increased diversity of contemporary society. Okay, what I'm sort of like saying here is that when a society was less diverse, when people's lives were a lot more structured, they were a lot more rigid, in modern society, where structural issues shaped the way people's lives were, then maybe positivist methods would have been better because it was a one-size-fits-all theory. With increased diversity in contemporary society, we cannot say that one size fits all. People have a mass of different experiences within society based upon their social class, based upon their gender, based upon their ethnicity, and the intersections between those. So we'll look at that in a little bit in this essay. So, while positivist methods were adequate for studying society that is impacted by structural forces such as class, gender and ethnicity, contemporary society is less rigid in its definition of these forces, and therefore individuals will have many differing experiences regardless of their class, gender or ethnicity. So what I'm arguing here is that you can be working class, but you can have different experiences to other people from the working class. For example, if you're a working class man, your experience of life will be very different than if you're a working class woman. If you're a working class man who comes from a single parent family, your experience is going to be very different than that of somebody who doesn't. If you are a working class gay man, then it's going to be very different from a working class straight man. These intersections make our experiences very, very different in society. The micro nature of interpretivist research is better suited to investigating the multitude of individual narratives in contemporary society, as they can use in-depth methods such as unstructured interviews to develop a rapport with individuals and get them to understand the meanings and motivations behind their actions. This is more important in contemporary society as structural forces intersect and provide a range of different experiences for individuals that cannot be explained through examining quantitative data. What I'm kind of arguing here is that, well, if we look at people based upon their income, there will be a range of different experiences. Not everybody who's on the same income as me will have had the same experiences as me. Likewise, not every woman is going to have the same experience. Working class women will have a different experience to middle class women, to upper class women. White women will have a different experience to black women and to Asian women. So we're saying that sort of like looking at society through an interpretivist viewpoint and looking at the small groups is better suited in contemporary society than trying to develop this one-size-fits-all theory. A second reason interpretivist methods are better suited to studying society today is due to the inequality in society. High levels of poverty, particularly among lower social classes and marginalised groups, are often misunderstood when examined through the use of positivist methodology. Interpretivists aim to give a voice to these marginalised groups, as Becker argued that sociology should be on the side of the underdog. Interpretivist methods allow researchers to develop a rapport with their subjects and develop verstehen, or insight into their position, and this can be used to highlight issues that are not uncovered with the use of large-scale positivist methods such as questionnaires. Interpretivists will use more qualitative data with higher validity such as diaries and video logs, and will be able to use these to raise awareness of the issues faced by those who are disadvantaged in society. What we're arguing here is that interpretivism is on the side of the participant, whereas positivist methods tend to be a top-down approach, looking down upon the participants and analysing them and seeing them as research subjects. Interpretivist methods develop a little bit more empathy, they develop more insight, and it's what we would see as being more of a bottom-up approach, a little bit more like social action theory. So we can use those two. They may seem on paper to be very similar reasons, but what you can see here is that one explanation I've given is, well, interpretivism gives people a voice, and the other one is, well, actually we need to understand all of the different groups that exist in society. So there's my two responses to what I think would be a quite tricky question to look at. Certainly if you got this question as positivist methods are better suited, there's probably a lot more straightforward answers. So large scale informed social policy, it can be used to look at broad trends in society, it can be seen as being more scientific. Interpretivism is a little bit more focused on people rather than the data. Now, I did mention before about the Sociology of Science debate. There is this kind of one sheet summary that I've put in here. Can sociology be a science? Yes. And on this one side I've got positivism and the idea that Popper put forward that science is falsifiable. Then we've got on the right hand side, we've got no, sociology shouldn't be a science, and we've got interpretivists, phenomenologists, postmodernists. And then in the middle we've got, is science even scientific? And then you've got Kuhn and the idea of paradigm shifts, and then your conclusion in the middle, which is really the realist explanation, and this is the idea it's difficult to disentangle social factors from human ones. People are unpredictable, so it's very difficult for us to predict what they will do, but we can understand by using scientific methods why they have done something. And there are some sciences that are like that, particularly things like meteorology and seismology, where we can't make predictions, but what we can do is we can understand what has happened by looking at the evidence that is available. And I'm going to use that in one of my paragraphs. So, outline and explain two ways sociology can be seen to be scientific. One way in which sociology can be seen to be a science is put forward by positivists. They argue that sociology can be scientific as it is based upon direct observation of what Durkheim called social facts, or how social factors can shape individuals' behaviours. Durkheim argued that the impact of these social facts is measurable using quantitative data, and studied suicide statistics across Europe in his research to determine how social factors such as the level of integration and regulation impacted on individuals' decision making. What Durkheim found, if you can recall, or if you haven't done Durkheim's study of suicide, is he found that people were either excessively integrated into society, they were very closely knit society, and they would end up committing what he called altruistic suicide, or they would be inadequately integrated into society, and this is what he suggested was egoistic suicide. Then he argued that people committed suicide based on the level of regulation that they were under. So there was fatalistic suicide, which was when you're excessively regulated, and anomic suicide when the norms and values changed rapidly. What were your normal norms and values disappeared. Positivists further argue that human behaviour is like the behaviour of the natural sciences. Whilst we cannot see internal processes, we can observe patterns of behaviour and use these to formulate theories about how people will act in a given situation. Now, I have put a little bit of an evaluation in here. Of course, it can present as analysis, Generally, it's a criticism that human behaviour is less predictable than the natural sciences and should be viewed on the basis of an individual's motivations. Now, I'm doing this because I'm going to link into another paragraph here where I talk about the realist view, which will suggest that human behaviour is not predictable. I do sort of like know that on this type of question you don't have to evaluate, but remember, if you do evaluate, it is not the end of the world because it can present itself as a form of analysis. A second way in which sociology can be seen as science is put forward by realists. Whilst they accept that it is difficult to observe internal processes that motivate individuals, it is possible to analyse patterns of behaviour and attribute a cause to that behaviour through scientific analysis. So what realists say is that, right, we might not be able to understand, we might not be able to predict why somebody does something, but we can understand why they've done it. We can look at the facts, we can look at the evidence. Realists argue that science, like sociology, is an open system of belief, and that patterns of behaviour, whilst not predictable, can be understood once they've occurred. They argue that sciences such as meteorology and seismology do not look to predict what is going to happen, but rather they analyse what has happened and explain why it occurred through examining evidence, much in the same way a sociologist may conduct research by collecting evidence of what has occurred in an individual's life, the circumstances surrounding that act, and drawing conclusions based upon the available data. Kind of concludes day 8. I'm going to move very swiftly on to day 9. Day 9, outline and explain 2 theoretical advantages of using self-completion questionnaires. So there are 2 big things in there. Theoretical advantages, so you're looking at things like reliability and how positivists would view it, how self-completion questionnaires may provide you with lots of quantitative data. They are theoretical issues. And then self-completion questionnaires. Now, the self-completion questionnaires are those that people take away and complete themselves. More often than not, they do tend to be closed questions, but there can be what we'd see as being open questions on those, particularly in contemporary society, where we don't really see a lot of questionnaires that are just closed or just open questions, but we tend to see them being more mixed. And then the second question, outline and explain 2 ways society can be said to have entered a postmodern age. So for this type of question, what you've got to do is you've got to look at the features of postmodernity, issues like globalization, rejection of meta-narratives, increased choice, greater diversity in society, and then apply your knowledge from across the specification to say, yes, we are in a postmodern age. So it might be the impacts of globalization on family life. You might want to refer to the impacts of greater choice in, say, for example, education, or the impacts of globalization on education, seen as one of the things that you'll be studying on the AI information. Okay, so hopefully we'll get those up tomorrow evening, and obviously then we will give you the final questions on day 10 for theory and methods. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, and thanks for watching.